Good morning, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Career Live. It's noon in New York. It's 11 a.m. in Texas, and I think it's 9 a.m. on the West Coast. We're delighted to have you with us for a regular Friday gathering where you can ask your questions. If you do have questions, you want to fire away, put them on the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. We do not mention names unless you want us to. So please feel free to ask your questions. We had a great turnout last night for our Your Career Community Question session over on TikTok. I think we had 400 people show up and got some great questions. Some of them we reserved, and we'll bring them forward today. I want to thank Peter for joining us this morning. Good morning from the East Coast. Thank you for being with us. So before we get started, we want to go through the normal routine. So thanks for coming. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Career Live. We're delighted to have you with us today. We've got some great questions, as I said at the outset. This is a new show or a new stream we're promoting on Fridays at 11 a.m. Central Time. So let's get right to the questions. Last month, I started a job search, my first in a long time. I've submitted 15 or 20 resumes online, including jobs where I felt my skills were absolutely transferable. However, I've not received any feedback, not even any acknowledgement that they even received my information. What's going on? What am I doing wrong? Well, you're doing the same thing that a lot of other people do, so don't feel bad. First of all, if you don't customize your resume for the job that you're applying for, at least, using a lot of their phrases, a lot of the keywords from the job summary, whenever you can plug them into your resume, do that. It'll contribute to a higher scan score. If you think you're pretty well qualified and you think your skills are transferable, that's probably not going to mean a lot to the computer. The computer is now your first interview. It used to be the resume was, but a recruiter was looking at your resume and they made a human decision. The computers make a mathematical algorithm decision. And so something might work out, the phrase something might work out that recruiters used to use, that doesn't count anymore because computers don't understand that. Secondly, the computer is going to be looking, especially in this competitive market, for a 90 to 95% match on the credentials. And let me tell you, if you're not 95%, I say 90 to 95%, but if you're not 95 or better, it gets really tough to break through. Keep in mind that every time they post a management job online, and that's not most of them, that's a minority of all the jobs available. There are 200 to 300 people that apply, but why? Because online applications make it possible, and so you really need to consider, customizing your resume and tailoring it to the employer that you're applying to. If you get the impression that they've got problems, talk about in your resume all the problems you saw before and after. Highlight your analytical skills, highlight your problem-solving skills, highlight your ability to build consensus. Those would be all things that you'd want to really stress in that situation. You're not going to get feedback a lot of the time unless you're dealing with a company that has a brand new ATS system. A lot of the original ones did not have the capacity to recognize a resume, to capture the information immediately, and then immediately churn out your resume has been received. They're better now, but they're still, most of them, you never even know when your resume has been received or even when it's been rejected. And you certainly won't know if your formatting was bad And or you used a lot of color or multi-column formats. If the computer can't read it, it'll eject you, and nobody will know. They're not. You won't know. The employer won't even know. So that's kind of what you have to mention. You have to look at. Okay, moving right along now. I have been told by friends I need to update my LinkedIn profile. Why do I? Why? Oh, excuse me. Why do I need to spend time with social media? I've never had to worry with that before. Well, let's back up and work it down the backward side, and reverse engineer. In probably 5 years, maybe sooner, resumes in terms of getting qualified to be considered for a position will be irrelevant. Then you ask, what are companies going to do? They're going to use something called LinkedIn. and everybody's going to have a profile if you expect to be visible. And the better profile, the better chance you have of the computer finding you. And so in old searches, if you applied for a job, that meant you were an active candidate. As a recruiter, if I went out and tried to encourage you to be considered for the position, you were a passive candidate. You weren't actively looking. We came and got you. Now, with this new LinkedIn scanning, it's not new. They've been doing it for a while. But companies are now cutting down the sourcing time from 2 weeks to a few hours. They can look at thousands. Excuse me, my allergies are acting up today, and I'm hoping not to sneeze. They can look at thousands in less than an hour, sometimes maybe 90 minutes. They can go through, then cull them a second time and say, out of the thousands we've looked at, these are the 100 or 50 that are the best matches. Then they scan them again, and they'll get the top 30 or 40 matches, and then they will generate a letter from the recruiter, the search firm or the corporate recruiter, nice little LinkedIn round photo that says, hey, your name surfaced in a search. It surfaced on LinkedIn because of the computer. We would think that we'd like to consider you for this position. Here's the position. Here's a little information. Here's the salary range. If you have an interest, please submit your resume to the link down low. Okay. What you're going to have to do is when you click the link, you're going to have to treat it the same way you would treat submitting a resume through the portal. And that is, customize it for the job, uses the keywords, etc. So, that's how it's going to happen. You're going to have now, you might have 8 or 9 or 10 active candidates and maybe 10 or 15 passive candidates. With this new scanning, and as they move more and more toward searching on the internet and on platforms like LinkedIn, you may be competing with 400 or 500 candidates. So that's just something you're going to have to get used to. Try not to think about it, but every time you file a resume, you've got to be the best person you can be. You've got to customize it to be sure that all the things they're asking for are highlighted. All the keywords and phrases they're using are included. And you also need to really be sure that you are touting your value. Now, the old days, resumes were really basically a record of your employment. Now, there's that, your record of your employment. But what employers are looking today is, what are your accomplishments? So you've got to be sure that when you see that they've raised an issue, if you've got an example of a quantitative accomplishment, you want to use that. Especially if you have before and after results. I was visiting with a physician this morning, and he told me a couple of stories, and they're just like, wow, this is really good. We need to include that. Wasn't anywhere in his resume. I said, this is about your value. So you got to be experienced. Everybody is. Okay. Being experienced is no longer a differentiation. You've got to have all the credentials and whistles and bells. Okay. Got to have that. That's now, everybody does. Then you have to be able to show your value. And that's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else. Okay. So that's kind of what's happening with the resume business. And it's also what's happening on LinkedIn. If you are not active on LinkedIn, you will not be visible to recruiters. Okay. I saw your office live stream Wednesday, or excuse me, your office hours live stream on Wednesday. You spent time talking about the importance of excelling or excelling in a job interview. Why is it more important today than it was in the past? Because first of all, there's a lot of competition. Second, everybody's qualified. Third, the only way you can differentiate yourself, because everybody's got a good resume, everybody's qualified. The only way you can differentiate yourself is by selling your value, highlighting your value that really relates to them. In the old days, people would come in and just answer questions and assume that the employer would make the decision once they read the resume and listened to the interview or reviewed their notes. I'm the best qualified candidate. Now, that assumes now they're going to make that connection on their own. Don't do that. The old story is if somebody else tells your story because you're not telling it yourself, you probably won't like what is being said. Well, let me tell you something. If you sit back and you expect some employer to make the conclusion about why he should hire you, he's probably going to make the wrong choice. You have to give him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many reasons you have that are really relevant. You need to give them that information. The employer has you there for a reason. He's looking for a solution. Be that solution. All righty? I hope that helps you. What is the interviewer looking for when they ask, tell me about yourself? This is from Robin in Durango. Hey, Robin in Durango. What they really want, unless they specifically say, walk me through your resume. Okay. What they are not asking for you to do is walk you through their resume. People make that mistake all the time. They got your resume. So use this as an opportunity to sell your value. You should have already gone through the process of defining your signature strengths and writing a value brand statement. If you don't have that, that's just your if you say I want to be a great interviewer, and you're going to have to be to succeed, then how can you do that if you don't have a focused set statement about who you are and why somebody should hire you? You can't go into an interview and make stuff up as on the fly, answer questions on the fly. Tell me about a time when this or that. You got to have examples ready. You have to really be prepared today to be successful in a job interview. And so the tell me about yourself is talk about your values, talk about your philosophy, talk about your interest in that organization, talk about how their values align with yours, talk about the job seems so interesting and engaging, and it would be something I would be very excited to be involved. Talk about how you've done similar work, talk about all your successes. Do it in less than 3 minutes. Minute and a half to 2 is good. Less than 3 is mandatory, and learn that statement. I can't tell you how many times I tell people, let's write this, now learn it. And then when we go do a mock interview, it sounds like we've never done any work on this at all. This is a no-brainer. If you really have a good tell me about yourself answer, you are off to the races, because a lot of people don't have one. And for somebody who's interviewed about 9,000 plus people in my career, let me tell you something. I'm not bringing you in to bore me. I'm not bringing you in to be interviewed because I want to, it's like I want to listen to people scratch their fingernails across a chalkboard. I'm looking for a reason to recommend you to my client. Give me one, and start off with a value brand statement that is engaging, that gets me excited. Tell me why we should hire you. That's what a VBS is. And that is how you you tee the ball up for the rest of the interview. You've got to sell yourself. You got to connect your accomplishments and your strengths with their needs, and you got to do it. You can't just hope they'll figure it out for themselves. They won't. Why does it take so long for employers to make hiring decisions? Oh, that has a lot of answers. Number one, they don't know what they want, so they just keep interviewing and hoping God will give them insight and they can make the right choice. Or sometimes they're bureaucratic. They have a bad hiring practice. That should raise a yellow flag for you. Sometimes people in their own self-importance say, oh, well, I can't be here that week because I'm planned to go to a conference. Hiring the right people is basically reaffirming the success of the company. That's one of the most important things you had to do as a CEO or as a senior executive is hire people. Jack Welch said that he didn't really understand that when he first became president and CEO, but his CHRO, Jack Conrady, he absolutely convinced him. And Welch, who was a legendary CEO of GE in the 80s and 90s, said, I spent a substantial amount of my time going forward as a CEO, chairman, CEO, to be sure we hired the right people and be sure that we developed them. So, this people now, it takes a long time to hire people because companies don't want to make a mistake. And So in the old days, it used to take at least a month and a half to get this contract signed, to start getting all the due diligence visits made, getting all the documents put together. And then you have people starting to make phone calls and get candidates in and do posting. And so it could be 45 days before they even mention your name or you submit your resume to a client. So there's a built-in 45-day window. Then the client has to go through all that stuff, look them over and say, we want you to bring these 3 or 4 people in. Then you've got to go through the machinations of getting all the people that need to meet this person to be sure they're going to be available on a certain day. And you'd be surprised. People say, well, I've got a lot of meetings that day. This is one of the most important things a company does. Why don't you postpone the meeting or reschedule it? If you're being asked to participate in an interview, they're saying something to you. We value your opinion. Please help us. So, but they're truly, I've seen interviews get postponed 2 to 3 weeks because everybody had more important meetings, which means their ego, they're trying to impress everyone that they're really somehow important. Usually they're not. Okay. So that's why interviews the hiring decision takes so long. It's not necessarily the recruiter. It gets bogged down on the hiring authorities page or the hiring authorities watch. Okay. Employers, I understand, are using my LinkedIn profile to decide if I am qualified for any position. And is it appropriate for them to do that even when I'm have not expressed an interest? Well, you may not like it, but they're going to do it. There's no provision of privacy. And if you post on LinkedIn, you should have no expectation of privacy. But if they're not looking at your profile, they're not going to advance you. They're not going to offer you. They're not going to think about, oh, that person, was a really impressive. We remember seeing that profile. Let's talk to her or let's talk to him. So you have to be visible, and you have to embrace the idea that it's not going to really be a person looking at your profile. It's going to be a computer algorithm that does the scanning. So you may not like it, but just get used to it because it's only going to become more prominent, and the whole recruiting process is going to become more automated. Okay. Sorry if you're uncomfortable, didn't like that answer, but that's the best one I got. Okay. I may be laid off early next year. I have a friend in HR who said the company plans to reduce its headcount in the first quarter of 2025. I have been identified for the list, this person told me, although it's not finalized. Can you give me some advice? Yes. First of all, don't do anything or say anything that would burn your source in HR. They've done you a real solid by telling you that. Now, the next thing you want to do is assume that it's true until you learn it's not. And is what the response time and assuming it's true is you get everything out of your office that you might need, make or break for a job search. Then next thing you want to do is be sure that you get your resume off the company computer. Any information about contacts that you've established through your job, get that into your address book, your personal address book. That's going to be really important because if you find one day they've turned off your computer, you'll never see that information again. So get it out now. Okay. Never keep your resume on the company computer. If you're using a company computer, you have no expectation of privacy, the courts have ruled. So, that's the first thing I do. The second thing I would do is kind of just sort it out in your mind. I mean, this is when you lose your job, it's really a loss. And I've seen people, cry, when they maybe try to get going too quickly, and I'd be doing an initial interview and they would start crying because losing a job is to a certain extent, is like losing part of your identity. And, you have friends there that you're going to get cut off from. You have all these things, and it makes people profoundly sad. And so you want to be sure that you get everything you need, you get everything you want out of the office, and you begin going through the process of getting your mindset oriented not to the past, You can't find a job looking in the rearview mirror. You cannot find a job looking in the rearview mirror. You've got to move forward. You've got to get repositioned, and you need to start learning the rules of the road before you get your severance agreement. Okay. Don't assume that it won't come about and just say, well, when it happens, I'll take action. Congratulations. More than likely, you'll add 2 to 3 months to your job search with that decision. It's a lot different than it used to be. It's a lot more complex than it used to be. It is now highly digitized more than any other time. And it also is really a lot of it's being automated. Okay, so this throws a lot of people. It takes time for people to kind of acclimate to this new system, and and on top of that, it's very, very competitive. So you need time to put together, update your resume. If you need some help, or ask a resume writer to help you, we do that. But what we'd rather do is teach you how to do it yourself, because you're going to be needing a resume until they decide they're not relevant anymore. And you can spend a lot of money having resume writers update your resume for each job. So what we do is we help you get a format. We call it a placeholder resume, and we show you where where you're going to be able to customize it, and show you how to do that, teach you how to do that. So that's the next thing you've got to do. And then you got to be building a network. If you don't have a network, it is absolutely going to severely, severely limit your career going forward. But most people push back on that. They go, no, it's not true. Well, you take that position at your own peril. Okay. I have seen people who were really top-notch executives who took almost 12 to 14 months to find their next job, because they did not have an active, focused group on where they wanted to go, and didn't have a focused networking people to really help them accelerate the clock. So that's another thing you need to do, and line up your references. Okay, and what you want is 4 references: a superior, peer, subordinate, maybe another subordinate or another peer, or if you have a couple of people that were your superiors that you can use, that's even better. Now, uh, you submit 4 because most companies want 3. So you want to be sure they have an extra one if that person, one of your references, is out of pocket, is sick, traveling on business, whatever. So you always want to have 4 and submit 4. When should I submit my resume, or submit my references? Excuse me. Well, you want to submit your references when they're requested. Don't do it before. Why? Because when you get that request for them, you kind of know where you are in the search. You've made it this far. You're getting to the final steps. You're one of the people they're considering. That's what it generally means. Not always, but probably 95 to 97% of the time. You're somebody they really want to work with. They've decided you're somebody that can do a good job. But so that's, you want to submit your references at that point. Okay, because that way you'll know what's going on, you'll know where they are. But if you submit it up front, first, it could screw up the ATS and get you thrown out. Number 2, you won't know what they're doing, where they are in the search. So hold on to the references until they ask for them. Okay. Uh, one company our company is in the midst of a series of layoffs. Boy, this is going to be pretty common going forward, unfortunately. I mean, we're going to come to the end of an economic cycle, regardless of who's elected president. Um, our company is in the midst of a series of layoffs. One of my colleagues in our department was recently on the latest round of layoffs. He confided to me that HR pressed him aggressively, his words, not mine, to sign the severance agreement before he left the building the day they notified him. They gave him a short deadline when he refused to do that, and the deadline was like 5 o'clock the next afternoon. Do you have any advice? What are your thoughts? Well, first of all, he was smart not to sign it on the spot. He can take it home. He can talk to his lawyer, whatever, as long as he meets their revised deadline. Okay. You don't have to sign that before you leave. They can't compel you. They can try. They can try to threaten you or scare you. Just say, well, I just need time to see it. This is a big shock for me. I just need time to read this through and be sure I understand what's happening. And what you also might, if they kind of say, well, just say, look, this does not have to become adversarial. I mean, the last thing I want to do is hire a lawyer and stir up a stink. all I'm asking is you give me overnight to read the deal. Most every time, every CHRO who was either smart or such a wussy, they would roll over. Okay. So that's a strategy for you to use. Do not sign anything immediately after you've been told you've been laid off, even if they try to force you, even if they threaten you that you're going to lose your severance. They would lose that case in court in a New York flash. Okay. So don't let anybody bully you. A lot of that going around, and be sure that you clearly define, I just need some time to think it over and talk to my attorney, and give me tomorrow afternoon or the following day. And that would be very, very helpful. Don't cut it too short. Always ask for the longest period of time. If it's a Thursday, ask, say, well, my lawyer is out tomorrow, can I bring it to you on Monday or Tuesday? Get them to push it out to give you more time to kind of get your brain wrapped around what's happened to you. Do you have any tips on how to reduce my chances of being laid off? What can I do to keep my name off the dreaded list? Well, we have external marketing that's used to help you take the next step in your career, to find people, to get to know people who can then help you grow, who can refer you to people that are in a position to hire you for your next gig. In a layoff situation, when you get a new job, you got to start building a network internally as soon as possible. And you want to be the person who volunteers. You want to be the person that offers to help other people out. All of those things. Okay. You need to build relationships. You need to be the friend that everybody wants to have, because if you fall into that category, they may not say anything publicly, but those are the kind of people that will ride to your rescue, be supportive of you, maybe even try to help you, with a gig with somebody they know. So be sure you build those internal relationships. And if you're well liked, you become more valuable to the company. You don't want to become invaluable. That's kind of the kiss of death. So that's kind of a couple of tips to do. Don't assume that because you're employed, you don't have to do internal networking. You absolutely do. You don't want to be too obvious about it. You don't want to go down the mid hallway banging their drum. Look at me, I'm important. Help me out. I'll help you out. Let's network together. You don't do it that way. You do it by actions and building relationships. That's how you build those internal relationships. And I have seen some people, senior leadership, who didn't know a particular candidate they were identifying to throw off the bus. And all of their friends that were in the meeting said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. Chris is so valuable. I mean, he's always offering to help people, and we really need him in this role." And so, that can help dissuade you being put on the list. Okay. The other thing you can do is don't be a shit can stirrer. Okay. Some CEOs can only take so much garbage. They can only take so much conflict. What you do not want to become is the person that they like you, they think you do good work, but it's just not worth having you around if everybody's going to complain about you. So that's something you have to consider. Um, I was laid off. You're warning that not having a professional network would make job searching more difficult and more painful. Do you have any advice you can give me? Unfortunately, everything you said has come true. Um, but I need to get back and start doing research to get my next gig. And I want to try to bypass those nasty bots whenever I can. Well, you do that by building a network. That's how you avoid the bots. Something, you build, excuse me, you build the network so that it's in the vertical where you're going. You've got 2 or 3 next step options. You have networks built around those next steps. And so that's that network can help you get past the guarded front door, so to speak. It is in 3 to 5 years, if you don't have a robust network, job searching is hard today, but it is going to be so over the top going forward that it's just going to be really, really tough for you to get away with that. And so what you're going to have to do is build a network, and they can refer you through the side door, bypass the bots, or they might be able to pick up the phone and call a board member or a CEO who can then get involved directly. But the key thing is the people you network with, you need to build relationships. They need to like you. They need to be able to say, John's a good guy. We've been friends for a while, and he's always helped me, and I've helped him. Um, if you keep getting blocked out by the bots, there's another way you can go. First of all, don't just change your resume and resubmit it because that's not going to work. You've already been coded as ineligible. What you want to do then is start looking at other people in that organization. If it's not big enough and you want to go, maybe you have to go to a bigger company in the same vertical, then do that. But use LinkedIn, use your professional directory, your membership directory, to collect email addresses, telephone numbers, etc. Not everybody shares that information in their contact section, but there are some online web pages and some of them have free introductory offers. And that web page, you can give them basic information and the name of the company, and they'll do a really quick search of all their databases to be sure that they can maybe give you some suggestions. Oh, maybe have the CEO's or the CFO or the COO's first name, but not their last name. Or you're trying to figure out, do they use Cindy M or Cindy period, plus the name of the organization. These are all things that these tools can do to help you. You may not always get somebody using that email service. It's free. You may argue you get what you pay for. But the other thing you can do is use the technology that's available, build a network. It's so important. And when you are first kind of, there's always transitions in organization, get to know people, develop relationships with them. That's really, really important because they can give you good news and bad news. So you just have to be as good an internal network as that you should be externally. So the other thing I would do is if you have a targeted company, go look at their Google, do a LinkedIn search and get everybody's profile up that works for that company, and maybe find somebody that you know or have a connection with, or somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and get them to mention your name to the hiring manager. But don't keep resubmitting the same resume because you've already been logged out as not being a good match. Finally, I want to leave you this information. It's a little after 11:30, so we've gone over a little bit today. There are going to be more layoffs. It's a foregone conclusion. We've had 45 months of uninterrupted employment. There's the fundamentals of the economy are not really there. The economy's good, at what we are allowed to see of it at the surface, maybe 5 feet below. But every cycle comes to an end. And so when you have new cycles or new people taking over, those people are going to bring their prejudices, what they want to do. Sometimes what they want to do may be contrary to the best interests of the broader economy. You get the picture. So what you want to do is, be prepared. And in order to anticipate this stuff, if you don't know anybody in HR, keep an eye on a website called Warn Tracker, WARN Tracker. And it's basically based on the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, called WARN, warn.gov. Now, you go there and you find your state association, workforce association, the department, and you go to their site, and they're obligated by law to post all the layoffs in their jurisdictions with 100 or more employees and their other criteria. And they will show you what companies will be laying off the next 60 days in your county, in your region. So there's a lot of resources at your hand. You can also use the professional directory. You can use LinkedIn. You can go, look up their profiles on Instagram, Facebook, etc. You can't sit back and wait for the phone to ring. You have to make things happen. If your reference is not being accepted, then you need to figure out what's going on and why they're not accepting you. And it may just be a competitive thing. Maybe you're always the one with the less experience and the less attraction to be a top leader. Maybe that's just not working for them. So there are a lot of things that could happen. What you want to do when you start in the process, the one thing you always want to do is, in order to succeed, you're going to have to be better than everybody else. Now, this is not something that's normally shared, but let me explain it to you. It's a zero-sum game. If you do not beat the person for the job, you're going to lose. One person's going to win, one person's going to lose. If you have 5 people on the panel, one person's going to win, 4 people are going to lose. So what you have to work on is to become the best person at the interview table. People are not born natural interviewers. Trust me. People are also, they have to, it's a really tough time. It's a really, really tough time. And you got to be really, really competitive. You need some help with your interviewing. We have a course we can teach you. I was working with somebody today and they gave great answers, but they were pretty long-winded. And so I said, we're going to have to compact that into a shorter, more impactful answer. And so the person laughed. He said, I'm like you. You could shut up a brick wall. Okay. As we close out, I want to tell you about a new program we're developing. And that is, you probably noticed this. Age discrimination is a thing. After you pass the age of 45, the law begins to cover you for age discrimination. And there are a lot of people out there who are in their late 50s, early 60s who want to work till 70, 72 that aren't ready to retire, but companies are looking to bring in new blood, bring in new ideas. So how do you avoid getting put on that list? Well, the truth is you have to be invaluable. You have to make it so hard for them to fire you that they probably won't. And that's something you gotta consider. You want to do a really good job. You want to interview really well. You want to have a great resume. You want a head start on when the layoffs are going to occur so you can get everything ready. And don't go, if you have to go into the job market and you're not job search ready, it's going to cost you 6 to 8 months. Listen, that's all the time we have today. I want you to know how much we appreciate you being here. And hopefully next week we'll have some more viewers and we'll have more questions. These mostly came from last night's TikTok deal. I'm always amazed at how many people are on in TikTok at night. I mean, it's like small towns must be vacant. Anyway, we want you to know how much we appreciate it, and we hope that you have a great weekend. And since we've been talking about discrimination, this is probably one of the most popular types today.
Don't give up, 'cause you have friends. Don't give up, you're not the only one. Don't give up, no reason to be ashamed. Don't give up, you still have us. Don't give up now, we're proud of who you are. Don't give up, you know it's never been easy. Don't give up, 'cause I believe there's a place where we belong.